Hello there guys, my name is Mr. Missing in Action and welcome to this another Raid Shadow Legends video. In today's video we're going to take a look at the 18 farmable rares within Raid Shadow Legends. Those are the rares that you can acquire simply by fighting your way through the campaign locations. I'm going to rank them for you from 18 to 1. I'm going to put them into 3 distinct groups. The first group being those that you're going to look to feed. Those that are really not worth all of your resources, where you're going to find better alternatives elsewhere. The next group will be those that I think are worth taking to 5-star 50, that will serve you perfectly well in the early to early mid game. And then the final group, a very small group, will be those that I think are 6-star worthy, those that are end game viable, and should certainly be a part of your team if you do happen to pull them in the campaign. So, anyway, before we get started, I would like to open up the single ancient shard that I have here. We are in a summon rush, so let's go for it. Let's see what I can get here. Keep your fingers crossed for me, guys. I didn't have much beginner luck in my first video yesterday. Let's see if that can change today with this single ancient shard. So here we go. Here we go. What have I got? Fingers crossed, guys. And it's a bit slow, it's a rare again, and it's Hellfang. Okay, well let's take a look at Hellfang. I have to say I'm a bit disappointed I'm not getting that early YouTuber look. But okay, let's take a look. A1, single attack, 15% chance of putting the target's skills on cooldown. That's nice, can book it up to 20. A little bit low, but putting target skills on cooldown is a very effective control mechanism. A2, single attack again. 50% chance of placing the strong form of weaken on the one enemy. Okay, if you've got nobody else to put weaken on the clan boss, weaken is a great debuff to put on the early clan bosses up to about brutal level. It's actually stronger than decreased defense up to brutal. A3, AoE attacks all enemies. 50% chance of placing a freeze debuff for 1 turn. That is really nice. Only available when houndspawn is on the same team. Well, that's interesting. Houndspawn is one of the farmable rares that we're going to take a look at today anyway. I don't rank him too highly, but perhaps he ranks higher if you do have this Hellfang guy. And he's got an aura, locked behind Ascension level 3, increase of attack in dungeons by 21%. It's not bad. Attack's not really what you're looking for on the aura though. You want to be going for defense or speed preferably. But anyway, there we go. Let's get straight on to the main topic of today then. The 18 farmable rares and ranking them. So I'm going to go into campaign locations, and we're going to start with number 18. 18 through to 9 are the ones I consider to be food, so we'll run through those ones pretty quickly. We'll focus most of our attention on the top 8. Okay. Anyway, so for number 18, we need to make our way to Palace of Aravia, and it is Avenger. Now, Avenger, interesting look to her. Can't say it appeals to me all that much, but with Avenger, there's not a whole lot going on in her kit. If you take a look at the aura, ally attack in faction crypts. So it's not like an all locations or a dungeon location. What else have we got? A1, attacks one enemy, 30% chance, can be 40% of placing the weak form of decreased defense on that one attack, on that one opponent. Attack at random 2 times on the A2. Ascended up, you get a small chance of inflicting a critical hit. And the A3 is also a single attack that always inflicts a critical hit. It's all single attacks, there's not a lot going on in her kit. For me, I wouldn't bother building this one up. Keep 1 copy of every rare in your vault though for future fusions. But once you've got one of her, you start feeding this. It's a waste of your resources, this one. Okay, so coming in at number 17, we need to go to stage 5, Felwyn's Gate. And here we find Rocktooth. Again, Rocktooth, interesting look. I don't really like the Ogrins in terms of their looks. I have to be honest with the majority of them. This is one of the. You'll notice I called this video the good, the bad, and the ugly. For me, this is one of the ugly ones. A1 single attack, extra hit if it's critical. A2 is an AoE, so that's okay. Places increased crit rate buff on all allies, kind of the weakest of the buffs. On the A3, single attack, places the weak form of heal reduction for 2 turns. When ascended, it's the strong version. Here's food. Here's going to be food. But if you have nobody for that heal reduction, he has a place in the early game Spirit Keep. So yeah, he's got a little bit of utility there, I guess. But for me, he's absolutely food. Moving on to number 16. 16, we need to go to stage 7 Tilshire. And here we find Gomask. Gomask has an aura, HP in arena battles, 25%. It's not bad, I suppose, but in the arena you're really looking for a speed aura on your lead, so it's unlikely that you're ever going to be using him in that respect. A1, attack one enemy 2 times. Suppose it gives him a bit of utility in Fire Knights. A2 is a single attack on one enemy. Damage increases by 20% if the attack is critical. So we've got like a condition on that, which is never really that good. A3, single attack again. Will ignore shield and block damage buffs. So that's nice. He could be a single target AoE nuker in the arena. He will receive damage, however, equal to 10% of his max HP when he places this, when he attacks with it, unless you ascend it up, of course, in which case that bit disappears. But for me, it's all kind of it's one enemy, it's a single target. There's nothing really going on for me with this one. It's another food one. Number 15, it's a lizardman. You can get lizardmen in 2 locations actually within campaign. This one you find in stage 10, Godfrey's Crossing, and it is Flinger. Aura, ally resist in faction crypts, absolutely meh. A1, attack one enemy, 40% chance of applying the weak form of decreased defense. It doesn't compare to my number 6 uncommon. If you go back and watch that video that I produced for you yesterday, an uncommon by the name of Pilgrim, who didn't quite make my top 5, who actually has the weak form of decreased defense on an AoE attack, so there's nothing special here. A2, AoE attack, nothing else going on with it there. And the A3, single attack, extra 50% chance of inflicting the crit. If you ascend it, it's always a crit. It's just very meh, very meh. I wouldn't personally bother wasting your resources on this one. Number 14, I should have stayed in Godfrey's Crossing. It's Muckstalker. Muckstalker, we have an aura, ally HP in faction crypts, 22%. A1 is a single attack, 30% chance of placing block buffs, which is kind of nice, I suppose. But his damage is based on attack and HP, so it's going to split between the 2. Block buffs is a really nice debuff to place, but it's a relatively small chance. We can get it up to 50, but on one opponent, so it's better than most A1s on rares, though, I have to say. A2 attacks one enemy, places a sleep debuff for 2 turns, but only if the target has no active buffs. Sleep is the weakest form of crowd control. If you then go and hit somebody that's got sleep on them, it immediately drops off. And the A3, it's not actually an A3, sorry, it's a passive. Places a continuous heal buff on himself if he loses more than 20% in one attack. That can be ascended up to the big version. But it's a kind of selfish support skill. With this type of thing, you're looking for AoE. Again, there is an uncommon on my video yesterday that will actually do this on an AoE basis. So but there's just nothing about Muckstalker that's worth building up. That you're going to find better alternatives in the uncommons. Number 13 we've already mentioned. That's Houndspawn, and you'll find him in Brimstone Path, should I say, sorry. Yeah, so he does pair with that guy that I just pulled. A1, single attack, ascend it for a chance of a stun. A2, one enemy 2 times. Good chance of placing the strong form of decreased defense. So it's not terrible, but it is a single opponent. A3 attacks all enemies, ignores defense and block damage buffs if they have freeze. That's where he pairs up with Hellfang, that guy I just pulled on the shard there. As a pair, they're probably worth having a little experiment about, but I wouldn't be looking to build them up too heavily. Again, he's probably like an arena champion to go with Hellfang. For me, not worth it. Number 12 is a lizardman, not in stage 10 this time, but in stage 2, Sewers of Arnok. Here we have Skull Swan. Now, Skull Swan comes with an aura. Ally speed in faction crypts, 13%. Speed auras are nice. It is just faction crypts, however. This champion here is kind of another selfish champion, you'll see in a second. Attacks one enemy 2 times with a 20% chance of placing the extra hit. Can be brought up to 30. A2 places the strong form of increased speed on this champion and the counter attack on this champion as well. Long cooldown on that can be brought down to 4. There's no attack involved here, but it is a place. And the passive fills his turn meter by 15% when he crits, and fills it by 50% if he kills an enemy. So he's a bit of a selfish champion. Everything's kind of me with this guy. So he does go in the food section for me. There are better alternatives. Moving on to number 11. Number 11 you will find in stage 1, K-Rock Castle. Conqueror, a Bannerlord and attack-based champion. He has an aura locked behind Ascension level 3, attacking all battles, kind of the weakest of the auras, and you've got to ascend in to be able to access it anyway. A1 is a single opponent 2-time attack, so there is some Fire Knight utility early game. One attack on a single opponent removes 2 random buffs from the target. Now this bit is nice. Which is why I've got him ranked fairly highly in the food section. Removing 2 random buffs from the target, there isn't a percentage chance, so this does automatically happen as far as I'm aware. It does require accuracy, I believe. You can put that in the comments, confirm whether this guy needs accuracy to actually remove these buffs. But this could be nice, really nice actually in the Magic Keep, trying to remove that really big shield that the boss puts on herself. Which can make it very difficult early game to actually take her down. So he's got some utility there in the Magic Keep. A3 attacks one enemy. Enemies killed by this skill cannot be revived. That's going to work well in Ice Golem. However, again, if you go back to my uncommon video yesterday, you'll find there's an uncommon who's also incredibly accessible, who comes with this block revive, as well as a whole lot of other stuff on his kit. So for me, there's just nothing about Conqueror that's really going to push me into building this guy. Finally, the number 10. Say finally, what am I doing? Saying finally. Number 10 you're going to find in the Deadlands, stage 9, Berserker. A lot of people do actually like Berserker and might disagree with this one. He's an attack-based champion when he finally comes up. Plarian play's been a bit slow today. Yeah, really rather slow. Anyway, A1 attacks one enemy, fills his turn meter by 30% if it's critical. A2 grants an extra turn, one enemy again if it's killed. So it's kind of like a weak relic keeper or hoarding. A3, all enemies 2 times. This one is pretty good, to be honest. It can hit fairly hard. Ascend it up to number 3 and you get ignoring of 20% of the target's defense. So that's kind of nice. He could have made it into my 5-star category. But anyway, very quickly before we take a break, number 9, the last of my foods. You're going to find this one in stage 3, Catacombs of Narbuk, and that's Sorceress. Come on, Plarian play. Sorceress, she almost made it into my 5-star heroes. One attack on the A1, 30% chance of placing the weak form of decreased speed. On the A2, she's got a double hit. 20% chance of placing an extra hit. And on the A3, the reason she almost made my 5-star list, 3 times at random, placing the weak form of decreased defense. It can go up to the strong form. Anyway, let's take a quick break. Okay then guys, so now we get on to the really interesting heroes that you're going to be able to pull from the campaign. The next 6 are ones I consider worth 5-starring. They may have 6-star potential. It really depends on the other champions that you have in your team. Remembering that this is a game where you're looking to build a team of champions for each stage and each dungeon. And they do have that potential. However, for me, there are better alternatives to these, and that's why I would suggest that you only take them to 5-star. You're probably not going to be using them until the end game. It takes a lot of resources to get a champion up to 6-star, so I would be looking at only 6-starring those that I think are end game worthy, those that I'm going to be using until the end game. So anyway, coming in at number 8, we have a high elf again, Palace of Aravir, and it's Eres. Eres has a really interesting kit actually. Starting with the aura, it's really quite nice. Ally speed in defense by 16%. Speed auras are really good. It's fairly solid, and you're going to be using her in dungeon teams for sure. On the A1, attacks one enemy, grants an extra turn if the target is killed. So again, this can just roll and roll and roll, kind of like a relic keeper or a hoarding. So kind of similar to Berserker in that sense. A2, now this is really solid actually. Exhortation, it removes one random debuff from all allies. It's on a 3-turn cooldown, so this is really good. So it's going to strip basically a random debuff from everybody when you hit this. Very often you'll find that you only have one debuff on everybody, so this is like a complete cleanse. It's really a very nice skill. Has a 60% chance of placing the weak form of increased speed on all your allies for 2 turns as well, on a 3-turn cooldown. When you ascend her, that goes up to the strong version of increased speed, a full 30%, and when you book her, you can bring that 60% up to 100%. So this is a really solid skill actually, and one of the reasons why she's in my top 8. There is a passive. Again, interesting, counterattacks the attacker when an ally is attacked. Now, when I first read this, I did build up an Eres, because I read this as every single time an attacker hits one of your allies, she will counterattack. But what actually happens is she only counterattacks the first attack each round. Still a solid passive, can't argue with it, but not quite what I was expecting when I started to build her up. Strong rare. Sort of underrated. Yeah, 5-starer. Take it to 6, depending on the team. You'll have. I wouldn't make her your first 6, of course. That needs to be a starter. Anyway, on to my number 7. Some people may disagree with this and think he should be a bit higher, but we're going to go to the Hallowed Halls and we're going to take a quick look at Executioner. Executioner is a defensive-based character. He comes with an aura, ally defense in all battles by 17%. Defense auras are solid, it's a reasonable percentage, but there is actually a much better farmable rare for this aura coming up soon. One of the reasons why he's not higher in the list. A1, single attack, small chance of placing the stun for 1 turn. 15% can be booked up to 30. It's a fairly solid A1. This guy hits fairly hard, being a defensive-based character, but the interesting thing is he's a defensive-based character and this scales off attack, so it makes him difficult to build. On the A2, we've got an AoE, decreasing the turn meter by 20%. This is actually really nice. It also has a 50% chance of placing a 15% decreased speed debuff for 2 turns as well, which you can get down to a 3-turn by booking it. Again, the damage is based off attack and defense here. Yeah, it's a really solid skill actually, this decreasing of the turn meter on everybody. Basically, Executioner, you're going to be using this guy in the arena. He's built for arena. A3, places increased defense on himself and a counter attack on himself as well. It is the weak form of increased defense. It can be ascended up so you can give him the strong form of increased defense. Long cooldown on it, you can call it down to 5, but yeah, this guy's an arena champion, so you're probably only going to be hitting this once. You may not be hitting it at all depending on your strategy, so I wouldn't bother trying to book that one down. Overall a solid champion, an arena champion for sure. Building to 5-star, you make the decision if you want to go 6, but for me he's not 6-star viable. Now on to my number 6. Voldemar Strait, stage 8, you will find Templar. Templar is a defensive based character again. He comes with an aura, ally resist in arena battles. This guy is probably going to be built for arena as well. Resist is kind of nice. Pushing your resist is going to help to prevent you receiving debuffs. It sort of counterattacks the opponent's accuracy. A1, one attack, single attack, 30% chance of placing the strong form of decreased speed. Being a defensive based character, you can build this guy to hit pretty hard. A2, attacks 4 times at random. Each hit has a 25% chance of placing provoke for a turn, and he also places a block damage buff on himself for a turn. Block damage is really strong actually. So what's going to happen is he has a chance of placing the provoke. You can build that up to 50%, which is solid. Forcing the opponents to attack him only with their A1. And when they do, block damage means that he receives no damage at all. So he's a really solid sort of character to throw into the arena. Building with a bit of speed so you can get him to go before the opponents. If he's going to be going after, then all of this becomes kind of a waste. It is an attack at random, so there's a bit of RNG in there. It would have been nice to have seen AoE on this, but he probably would have been a bit OP if it was the case. A3, passive, locked behind Ascension level 3. Contempt, now he will attack with the default skill whenever an enemy places a debuff on this champion. Absolutely worth ascending this guy for this. It means that when the opponents are trying to throw their debuffs down on him, he's going to attack back with his default skill, his A1. And then he's going to be trying to reduce their speed for the next round as well. All in all, solid champion. He is only a 5-star for me. Again, like I say, depends on the characters and champions that you've got around him. You'll see him in early game arena, but once you start moving up to silver, he just doesn't appear anywhere. For me, he's not really 6-star worthy. We're getting into the real meat of them now. Number 5's Dark Elf, Durham Forest for this one, stage 4. And here we will find Spirit Host. Spirit Host is a support champion. She's absolutely an arena champ. You see her in a lot of early game arena teams. She's all over the place in bronze. You still see her occasionally in silver. Comes with this aura, speed in all battles by 10%. So you find that you can use this one as your arena lead until you get your high cartoon. The 10% is kind of weak, but it's better than nothing at all. So you do see her in a lot of the arena teams. A1 attacks one enemy and heals herself by 50% of the damage inflicted. So this is kind of like, it's going to work like the lifesteal. It means you really don't have to worry about putting her in lifesteal if you're going to take her anywhere but the arena. A2 places the increase attack on all allies for 2 turns. When ascended, it becomes a strong version, so this is nice. So the way you want to work it is you want to have her going before your AoE nuker. Make sure that your nuker is an attack-based champion. And once you've ascended it, they're going to hit a lot harder. Finally, the A3, really nice, removes all debuffs on all allies and places block debuffs on them for a turn. So this is absolutely a champion that's built for the arena. For me, 5-star, I wouldn't take it to 6, mainly because of high cartoon, where you're probably going to be using this mainly for her speed aura. She does have these other skills that are useful in the arena, of course, but for me, she's not 6-star, she's a 5-star champion. Okay, on to number 4. Number 4, you will find in K-Rock Castle, and it's this one here, Valkyrie. Valkyrie is a Bannerlord. Bannerlords are generally one of the weakest factions, if not the weakest faction. But for me and for many other people, Valkyrie is the strongest rare in that faction. She's a support-based character. She's got an aura, HP and faction crypts, 22%. A1, there's nothing special about it. Nothing special about her name either. Swing. Attacks one enemy, does nothing else. But that's not what she's about. A2, really good. Energizing Presence. Decreases the duration of all debuffs on your allies and also places increased attack on them. The weak form. When you ascend her up, which if you're going to work on this one you really need to do, she will also, if you take a look, increase the duration of all buffs on all allies by 1 turn. So she's decreasing the debuffs, she's increasing the buffs in terms of their duration, She's placing increased attack. It's really very solid as a support champion. A3 as well places a shield buff on all allies for 2 turns. This shield is based on her level, which is a strange kind of game mechanic. But as you level her up, her shield becomes stronger and stronger. It's not one of the strongest shields out there, but early game to early mid game, maybe even mid game itself, the shield that she puts out is useful. Also heals each ally according to the number of buffs they're currently under. So you pair this one up with somebody that's throwing a lot of buffs out, and she's going to be a fairly solid healer as well. All in all, yeah, I think this is a solid one. Again, still not 6-star for me, but one of the stronger 5 stars that you're going to get from the campaign. Number three is one that once you start farming stage 12, brutal 12-3, once you get that far, you're going to pull a lot of her. She's Diabolist or Diabolist. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it. She's a support character. She's, for me, I'm going to say not 6-star viable, again because of high Cartoon on day 30, but let's take a quick look at her skills. On the A1 we've got a single attack, Torment, very small chance of placing Sleep, so nothing terribly impressive there. A2, AoE attack, this is solid, places the strong form of increased speed on all your allies for 2 turns. So she does have the fact that it's an attack at the same time. She has that over high Cartoon. When high Cartoon increases the speed, there's no attack involved. So she is going to do some damage on the enemies. However, you're not really going to be building her for damage, so it's going to be minimal at best. A3 fills the turn meter of all allies by 15%. And when you ascend her, she also decreases the turn meter of all allies by the same 15%. Yeah, if you take a look at these skills and you take a look at high Cartoon, they're essentially doing the same thing, but high Cartoon just does it a whole lot better. So that really is the reason for me why she's not 6-star viable. Take her to 5-star, use her until you get your high Cartoon, and then work on your high Cartoon instead. Right, let's take another quick break, and then we'll move on to my top 2, the 2 that I really do believe are 6-star viable. And that you should be working hard on. You should be looking to try and acquire, especially number 1. They're both endgame viable for different reasons. Yeah, let's take a quick break and I'll be back in about 10 seconds. Okay guys, now for the top 2. These are the 2 that are definitely 6-star viable from the rares. For my number 2, we need to go to Durham Forest. In Durham Forest, we will find, here he is, Greybeard. Greybeard is a skinwalker. He's a defense-based character. He's really solid, but often overlooked. If we start with his aura, which is locked behind Ascension level 3, we see ally defense in dungeons by 30%. That's a massive aura for a rare. 30% on defense in dungeons. Absolutely, you want to be ascending this guy to level 3 to unlock this. This is massive. This is going to make all of your guys much more survivable in the dungeons. You're going to be able to get through the waves and get to the bosses. He's going to allow you to make much more progress within those dungeons. He's 6-star viable for this alone. But let's take a look at his other skills. On his A1, we've got attacks 1 enemy, 50% chance of placing the provoke for that turn. That can be booked up to 70% chance as well. So there's a solid provoke there. On the A2, Ice Crush, it's an AoE attack, attacks all enemies. 25% booked up to 40 of placing a freeze debuff for 1 turn. Freeze is a really solid control mechanism within the game, and that's an AoE. There are only, to my knowledge, 2 rares that have got an AoE freeze. The other one being Hellfang, which I pulled off that Ancient Shard earlier. But that requires the use of another character as well, houndspawn. There's no requirement for that in here. So it's a really solid A2 here in terms of an AoE control mechanism. On the A3, we've got Bring It On. He places a shield buff on himself with an 80% chance, booked up to 100, of also placing counter attack, both for 2 turns. The value of the shield is proportional to his defense, so you want to build him with a high level of defense. And it also, rather importantly, cannot be removed. So any skill that any of your opponents have got that removes buffs It's just not going to remove this shield at all. It will, however, remove the counter attack, so be aware of that. It's on a fairly long cooldown, but it can be brought down to 4. All in, solid, a solid sort of dungeon carry, particularly for that aura. Definitely 6-star viable, particularly if you've got nobody with a better defense aura in dungeons. And then on to, well, the top farmable rare. There's no real question here. It's generally agreed by all experienced players within this game that the top farmable rare can be found in stage 9, the Deadlands, and it's War Maiden. War Maiden is barbarian. She's an attack-based champion. She doesn't wear an awful lot. She's kind of chilly. She's a bit of a fiery redhead. Let's take a look at the skills on the A1. Single attack, ferocious attack it's referred to. Has a 30% chance of placing the weak form of poison. It's okay, but it's not really what you're taking her for. On the A2, single attack again, opportunity strike. Places the strong version of increase attack on herself, and also places an extra hit if the first hit is a crit. That extra crit cannot be a crit in itself. It's a solid attack. She's got high damage multipliers, one of the highest for a rare in the game. Again, not what you take her for. We need to take a look at the A3. This is her real meaty ability. Crumbling Blast. It's an AoE attack with a 75% chance, booked up to 100, of placing the weak form of decreased defense for 2 turns. But when you ascend it up, it becomes the strong form of decreased defense. This here is the absolute best debuff in the game. Putting decreased defense on all of your opponents allows your damage dealers to hit so much harder. She's going to be placing it for 2 turns, every 3 turns, with the cooldown brought up. Again, this is going to allow you to make a lot of progress within the dungeons. It's going to allow you to get through the waves much quicker and make it to the boss. She's also a part of arena nuke teams, where you want an AoE decreased defense. She's one of only 2 rares that has an AoE decreased defense, the strong version in the game. The other one being Fleshmonger, a skinwalker. However, the difference between her and Fleshmonger is that she can bring it up to a 100% chance, whereas Fleshmonger caps out at 75%. So she's a really solid champion. She's absolutely S tier rare. You need to farm and build a War Maiden. There's just no question about it. There are champions that do what she does better, but then you got to start looking at epics such as Tyrell or Stagnite, or legendaries like Ghostborn. However, she actually places it for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. If you take a look at the Tyrells and the Stagnites, you're basically looking at 2 turns on a 4-turn cooldown in most cases. So she's a really solid character, an absolute must for almost everybody. Get into the campaign, get into stage 9, start farming for a War Maiden, start farming for duplicates. You won't regret building this one and taking her to 6-star, I assure you. You will be using her all the way through to the end game. So yeah, that's my rundown on the 18 farmable rares and categorizing them. So yeah, thank you very much for joining me today. This being my 2nd YouTube video on Raid Shadow Legends. It's been a pleasure. I hope you enjoy the next 24 hours until you see me again. Mr. Missing in Action is over and out. Peace out, guys. Have a good one.